The Galactic Academy was not just a school. It was the crown jewel of the Orion Arm, a place where young minds of hundreds of species came together to learn side by side. Its walls carried the voices of the greatest thinkers in history, and its classrooms were full of knowledge that stretched across the stars. To most students, walking into those halls felt like walking into the center of the galaxy itself. On this morning, the xenobiology classroom was calm and focused. Professor HFY, a tall Alarian with 4 slender arms and smooth blue skin that shimmered under the lights, was in the middle of a lecture. He spoke with elegance, his extra limbs moving with a dancer's grace as he explained the day's subject, the impossibility of sentient life surviving on planets classified as death worlds. His voice was soft but firm. These are planets so hostile, so violent, that no intelligent species could ever rise there. Their surfaces are torn apart by storms, their air is filled with poisons, and their ground burns or freezes in cycles. To imagine such places creating civilization, he shook his head slowly, his 3 eyes reflecting the holographic display above him. It is unthinkable. The students listened with focus. Some leaned forward, their sensory stalks twitching. Others blinked with 3 or 4 sets of eyelids. Their translator devices buzzed quietly, filling the room with faint mechanical whispers as words shifted into languages each one could understand. Then, with a soft chime, the classroom door opened. Every head turned. Every breath stopped. 2 humans stood in the doorway. The silence was so deep that the hum of the air system seemed like thunder. For a long moment, no one moved. The students' bodies tensed. To some, their spines stiffened. To others their shells rattled, and one crystalline being let out a sharp ringing tone like glass breaking. Humans. Deathworlders. The taller one was a man, Alex Rodriguez, holding nothing more dangerous than a datapad. His posture was relaxed, loose, almost lazy. Yet to alien eyes, it looked like the stance of a predator, an apex hunter waiting for prey to move. His eyes scanned the room, and when he smiled, rows of white teeth flashed like knives. Beside him stood Zenab, her dark hair tied back neatly, her face calm and friendly. But her eyes sparkled with something the other species could not name. It was too alive, too sharp, and it frightened them. She stepped forward first. Her voice came soft but warm. "Sorry we're late. The transport from Earth took longer than we thought." The sound of her words sent a ripple of unease across the class. Alien translators struggled with her tone. It carried emotion, so much emotion, that it seemed unnatural. To many species, voices were flat or musical, but never shifting like waves. To them, it sounded like the growl of a predator that was happy. Professor HFY froze. His 3 hearts raced inside his chest. He had read the files. He knew Earth, a place that should have destroyed life, not created it. A world of storms, radiation, fire, and ice. Yet here stood 2 of its children, alive, smiling, and walking into his classroom as if nothing was strange. Of course," he stammered. His translator struggled, repeating the words with a click. Please find your seats." Zenab and Alex walked calmly to the center row. Their footsteps echoed like drumbeats, and every alien student leaned back, pressing against the walls, desperate to stay as far away as possible. Zenab sat with the ease of someone who belonged anywhere. She crossed her arms lightly, looked around the room, and asked with innocent curiosity, "So, what were we discussing?" HFY's throat tightened. He adjusted the holographic display with shaking fingers. "We were speaking of the theoretical limits of biological adaptation to hostile environments." Alex leaned forward eagerly. His eyes lit up like a child hearing a story. "What kind of hostile environments?" The question sent fear through the class. One Athraxian released a cloud of distress pheromones so thick the vents whirred louder, cleaning the air in a hurry. A gaseous klaxon lost control of its form and had to activate its emergency containment suit. HFY swallowed hard. "Class 9 worlds," he said. "Planets where surface temperatures reach over 300 Kelvin. Places with crushing air pressure. Environments no life should survive." Zenab turned to Alex with a grin. Both of them smiled at once, showing teeth. The classroom froze as if lightning had struck. "That's cute," Zenab said softly. Her tone was gentle, but it felt like the whisper of an apex predator. "Alex, what was the temperature in Death Valley last summer?" Alex thought for a moment. "About 327 Kelvin. My grandmother used to walk there for exercise. Said it reminded her of her childhood in Morocco." The silence that followed was absolute. Every alien mind tried to process the idea. To them, such heat meant death, survival suits, and reinforced shelters. But this human's grandmother had walked in it, for fun. "Your grandmother," HFY whispered. His voice trembled. "She exposed herself to Deathworld conditions, willingly." Alex nodded, as if speaking of something ordinary. "She loved it. She also ran marathons." A Paxian student, fragile and thin like glass reeds, began to cry. Their weeping sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "Marathons?" another alien asked, their voice cracking. Zenab explained brightly. "It's when humans run 42 kilometers without stopping. On foot. For sport." The class shuddered as one. To them, endurance of that kind was impossible. Their species moved in slow intervals, resting often. To run endlessly for so far, by choice, was unthinkable. HFY tried desperately to regain control of his class. His voice cracked as he pointed at the holo display. "Let us speak of atmospheres. Surely no life could evolve in air filled with reactive gases. Free oxygen is unstable and dangerous. It rusts metals, feeds fires, and explodes under pressure." Alex raised his hand politely, a human habit, then answered with a cheerful smile. "That's about 21% of our atmosphere. Oxygen is what we breathe." Gasps filled the room. One student fainted on the spot. Another shielded their sensory stalks with trembling arms. The word struck like thunder. Oxygen, the poison of worlds, was the very lifeblood of humans. Zenab added with a soft laugh. "We kind of needed it to survive." The silence that followed was heavier than before. It was not just silence now. It was fear, awe, and confusion mixed together. The students stared, their minds racing, their hearts pounding. Everything they thought they knew about life was being broken piece by piece. And at the center of it all sat two humans, relaxed, smiling, and calm. Deathworlders. For the first time, the Galactic Academy realized they were sharing their classroom with predators born of chaos, creatures forged in storms, beings who laughed at the very conditions others feared. The classroom had fallen silent in terror, and the humans had only just arrived. The classroom sat frozen in silence. Every alien eye, stalk, crystal, and antenna was fixed on the two humans seated calmly in the middle row. They had said little, but each word had struck like thunder. What others called impossible, humans treated as ordinary. What others feared, they described as sport. Professor HFY's 3 hearts pounded so hard he felt dizzy. He wanted to dismiss the class, to escape, but something in him whispered that history was being made. The academy had taught for centuries, but never had a lesson felt so alive. He forced his voice to steady. Perhaps we should move to another subject. Let us consider predators. No intelligent species could have evolved from them. Predators are unstable. They are violent. They consume others only to survive. It is unthinkable that such a race could create peace. The professor hoped his words would settle the class. But Zenab tilted her head, almost playfully. Predators. That's us. Every student gasped. Some recoiled. A crystalline Zentari cracked down its side with a sound like shattering ice. Alex shrugged. We eat other creatures all the time. Meat, fish, birds. It's part of who we are. But it doesn't make us unstable. It makes us strong. Hunting made us clever. Cooking made us think. Sharing food made us families. The aliens trembled. The Vorak delegation, built with thick shells to survive storms, clacked their legs together nervously. They had evolved to eat only fungus from their homeworld caves. The idea of devouring flesh seemed monstrous. Zenab smiled gently, showing her teeth again. Don't worry. We don't eat classmates. The room shook with quiet fear. But beneath the fear, something else began to stir. Curiosity. Kethvar cleared his throat. Then, you admit your planet is violent, full of predators, storms, poisons, and death. Yet you live. How? Alex leaned back in his chair, thinking. Then he spoke slowly. Because we adapt. Everything on Earth tries to kill us. Heat, cold, fire, water, even the air. But we learn. We endure. We fight back. Zenab added, we make tools. We build shelters. We tame fire. We climb mountains and sail oceans. We even left our planet and walked on the moon. The class gasped again. Some students shook their heads, refusing to believe. But the human spoke with calm honesty. Kethvar's hands trembled as he gripped the podium. He remembered the files, the whispers of Earth. But hearing it from human lips made it real. You left your own death world. You walked on a moon. Alex nodded, smiling. 50 years ago. My grandfather told me stories about it. The Paxian who had been crying earlier let out another soft sound, like wind chimes in sorrow. To them, leaving their safe planet was unthinkable. Yet humans had done it with joy. Zenab leaned forward, her voice softer now. Do you know what keeps us alive? Not claws. Not shells. Not speed. It's each other. Humans survive because we protect one another. We run into fire to save strangers. We fight storms to rescue families. We never stop. The classroom grew still. For the first time, the fear shifted into something deeper, something like respect. A young Athraxian raised a trembling hand. Their translator clicked uncertainly. Is it true that your people fight each other? Wars. How can you survive if you destroy yourselves? Alex sighed. His face grew serious. Yes, we fight. Sometimes too much. We've made mistakes. Big ones. But even in war, humans find courage. Even in the worst times, we help the weak. We rebuild. We forgive. He looked around the room, meeting every frightened eye. We are dangerous, yes, but we are also kind. Zenab nodded, her eyes bright. The truth is simple. Our world tried to break us. Instead, it made us strong. That is why we are here. To learn. To share. To prove that even Deathworlders can be friends. A silence followed, but this time it was not fear alone. It was awe. Professor Kethvar stared at them, his throat dry. He had studied for centuries, taught hundreds of classes, but never had he seen such a contradiction. Creatures born of chaos speaking with such calm. Beings who survived storms and predators, yet smiled like children eager to learn. One Vorak student whispered through clattering mandibles, they smile even when they speak of death. How do they do that? Zenab chuckled softly. Because life is hard. Smiling helps. The answer was so simple that it stunned them. Slowly, the fear in the room began to change. The students still pressed against the walls, still trembled, but their eyes no longer held only terror. They held wonder. Kethvar finally spoke again, his voice soft. Perhaps today's lesson has changed. Perhaps we are not only speaking of death worlds, but of what it means to survive them. Alex nodded respectfully. Yes, Professor. Survival is not just about living. It's about finding meaning. Zenab added with a grin, and sometimes, about telling good stories. For the first time, a nervous laugh rippled through the class. It was shaky, uncertain, but it was laughter. The humans leaned back, relaxed, as if nothing unusual had happened. But every alien in that room knew the galaxy had shifted. They had come expecting to study theories about impossible worlds. Instead, they had met proof, living proof, that life could rise from fire and storm, and still smile. When the bell finally chimed to end the lesson, no one moved at first. The students were still staring, still caught in the weight of what they had seen. The humans stood, gathering their things. Alex nodded politely. Zenab gave a cheerful wave. See you tomorrow, she said, her voice warm. The door closed behind them. Only then did the class exhale as one. The sound was a wave of relief, mixed with disbelief. Some collapsed into their seats. Others whispered furiously. The crystalline Zenthari rang in sharp tones of confusion. The Vorak clattered nervously. The Paxian wiped away tears. Professor Kefvar stood frozen at the podium. His heart slowed, but his mind spun. He looked at the door where the humans had left. Deathworlders. Creatures who should not exist. Yet they did. And they had walked into his classroom smiling. He realized, with a shiver, that this was only the beginning. Tomorrow, the humans would return, and the galaxy would never see them the same way again.